We have details of all these stories and more, including business, sports, entertainment, and a lot more all lined up for you. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. The details of our stories now. And we start from that news that has been in the media for the last few days, having to do with displaced residents at Blekusu in the Keta municipality, who say they are ready to relocate if government will support them. This follows perennial flooding of the area, which has destroyed several property.
More than 100 people have been displaced. More than 60 displaced persons now live in the rooms of the Blekusu Primary School. Authorities have no option than to close down schools. Nursing mothers and children under 5 now sleep in poor conditions and at the mercy of the weather and mosquito. Every property in the way of the tidal wave has been destroyed. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, has stepped in to support victims. As at 9 o'clock Monday evening, only 25 households have been registered by NADMO. Victims say this is a major disaster as tidal waves wash all their property away. The NADMO Director General, Nanajiman Prempre, who led a team to distribute some relief items to the people affected, described their condition as pathetic. He said NADMO is shifting focus from distributing of items to finding effective solutions to disasters in the country.
We can't, as a nation, we can't just sit there and say every year it comes and go, every year it comes. One day we might not hear something better. So we need to do something about it. The President, His Excellency Nana Addo told me that he wants to see NADMO working for more preventive measure, not sharing rice and sugar all the time.
Some residents say they are ready to relocate if government will lend a helping hand. The assembly member of the Blekusu electoral area, Clement Agbote, wants government to extend the construction of the Keta Sea Defense Project. He argued that it will be the lasting solution to perennial tidal wave attack. He said the community has identified a suitable place to relocate, but said the place needs to be developed. Meanwhile, several houses continue to remain underwater.
In a related development, the Minister for Works and Housing, Samuel Atachia, says government will consider the construction of affordable housing units along the coastal communities in the country. He made this known when he visited some residents in the Ketu South municipality whose properties were destroyed during the weekend's disaster.
At Blekusu, 186 households were badly affected, with residents having to seek shelter at the Blekusu RC Primary School.
Since yesterday, this thing started happening around 2 o'clock a.m. at dawn. And as I'm speaking to you now, people are still living homelessly.
The issue of tidal waves having to affect some communities in the Ketu South district of the Volta region is an annual affair. And for now, you can see behind me, this classroom block is going to remain sleeping place for these residents who were displaced following the tidal wave that struck the community of Blekusu. The entourage also visited the Amutinu Salekope community, where some 60 households were also affected. Interacting with the affected residents, the Minister for Works and Housing, Samuel Atachia, says a permanent relocation will be considered by government to avert a recurrence of the situation.
It is imperative that we deal with the issue of relocation, as I'm seeing it. If you are too close for comfort in terms of how the sea can attack your property, then it's better there's a relocation.
The minister and his team also visited the Keta Sea Defense Project, which work has stalled. According to the executive director of Amandi Limited, Dro Taha, the severity of the waves is affecting progress of work.
The idea is to create about 90 meters of new land to create this new natural barrier.
Briefing the media after the tour, the minister called for the relocation of the residents as government impressed upon the World Bank for support for the construction of affordable housing units in the area. He was quick to add that the ministry would ensure all previous affordable housing projects are completed.
As it stands now, our priority is to secure the completion of all uncompleted buildings. We want to do a massive affordable housing in which the rural areas will be taken care of, because the relocation might not be appealing for now, because where is the alternative? So we have to now give them the houses and say, please, you pay whatever, or you have to pay and go and live here. Then we take over. I mean the beaches.
Some companies also donated assorted items to the victims.
At least some relief coming to the people there. But let's shift our attention to Tema. We woke up to some really bad news, and it's one of our headlines we're looking at for you, which has to do with a police officer with the Tema Police Command who was shot dead by 2 armed robbers at a filling station on the Michelle Camp Road. The officer was deployed for patrol operations. That is as far as we are told.
According to the police, they had a tip-off and proceeded to the scene where the body of the deceased was found. The deceased was identified as Constable Michael Koyi, who is with the Tema Regional Police Rapid Deployment. He was detailed with a motorbike for patrol duties.
2 armed men who were riding a motorbike from behind the policemen. But when they overtook the policemen, they started shooting at the deceased. The constable subsequently fell off the motorbike into a nearby gutter. Upon examination, police realized that he sustained multiple gunshot wounds in the face and in the chest.
The body has since been sent to the police morgue.
All right, so we just want to link this story to recent developments in and around, because in less than a month, the Tema metropolis has recorded 6 robberies, which led to the death of 1 person. Victims of these robberies were carrying large sums of money. TV3's Josephine Frimpong takes a look at the threat level, or threats following the spate of robberies in and around the Tema metropolis. And you would also recall that the police in that particular part of town were accidentally shot a colleague police officer following the fact that they thought he was a robber. And when Captain Mahama's issue came up, some people also said that that police officer's family should also be given the due attention. That notwithstanding, we would extend this conversation to look at issues relating to the proliferation of small arms and where these robbers get these arms to commit these heinous crimes. And when we do get there, we will try to speak to an expert and get his position on how, as a country, we need to safeguard ourselves. Should we legalize arms in the country where you go register, you pick it, and then you are monitored, or we should just let it be so that the police officers or the security of the country can go ahead and search and pick up these arms? How do we deal with this? We'll bring you that story about the crime and robberies leading to death in the Tema area, and then we'll link it to the death of the police officer that we've just brought you a story on. But joining me in studio is Emmanuel Koting. He's a security analyst and would be helping us understand how these things seem to be becoming rampant and how we can deal with it decisively and to the letter. Good afternoon, Mr. Koting, and thank you for making time to join us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your cherished viewers as well.
Thank you. The recent stories of police officers being shot, and then especially in and around the Tema areas, at least 6 robberies within a month. How does that hit you? Are we safe, do you think?
Well, thank you. I think it's not surprising if you look at the Tema metropolis, especially the Ashama area, and then going towards the Tulaku area. Ashama in particular is the den of criminals, and you can find all manners of arms in Ashama. And another location is Nima and Agbubroshi. Like you mentioned, legalization, I would say no. As a country, we have not reached that stage now. Even in the US, that this has been going on for a very long time now. We all know the antecedents that we see every now and then. I think that our institutions are not working. You see, we need to put a mechanism in place and empower such institutions to deliver. More often than not, and I'm guilty of this myself, we tend to criticize our security agencies so much without looking at the sacrifices they go day in and out to keep us safe and our communities even safer. Just last week, we buried an army officer, and today we are talking about a police officer. So we should begin to ask ourselves, what is wrong with our society? Until we get to that level, I'm not sure we can get solutions to whatever.
Okay. Let's bring the Tema story to our viewers. Then we can, use that as a platform to further this discussion.
This year, some alleged robbers snatched 1.6 million cedis and 300,000 CFA from a victim at a black market area at Tema Community 1. On May 10th, a young man was gunned down at the Tema Oil Refinery traffic light junction and robbed of 2.2 million cedis. Exactly 3 days after, on May 13th, 2 mobile money operators at Community 12 were also robbed of 10,000 cedis, recharge cards and phones. On May 17th, a resident at Community 6 was also robbed of 20,000 cedis. The latest, which occurred on May 20th, a Tema-based Burkina businessman was shot in the leg in broad daylight after robbers snatched an amount of 1.8 million cedis from him at Tema Community 4. The recent development has created fear among residents.
This time,
we don't know what is happening nowadays in Tema. It is really disturbing.
a police for no so no.
The police must get closer to residents when they find anything suspicious, but residents also must be more security conscious.
The Tema Regional Police Command last year recorded similar robberies and killings. Aside this, residents of Tema New Town this month attacked personnel of the Tema Police Patrol Team for allegedly shooting a resident during their dawn operation. The police said the trend of the robberies are worrying.
We have observed some trend. It's not a complete robbery case. We have realized that sometimes it is as a result of misunderstanding.
Owing to the situation, the police have stepped up policing efforts.
The command has launched the Operation Zero Robbery. We've actually identified where some of these things are frequent and some of these troublemakers are. And we have put intelligence, we have put policemen there to patrol.
But one wonders why an individual will carry huge sums of money around when other alternative means are available.
At the Tema case, there's a trend. It looks as if it's a targeted kind of thing. We are advancing. We need to move away from our cash system to a cashless society where we do all our transactions online. That way, people will not see you holding many form of cash on you.
Emmanuel Kutin, a security analyst, said the complexity of security.
And we'll just carry on from there because we have him in studio as well, Mr. Emmanuel Kutin, a security analyst. You were talking about the fact that at least if we just even want to focus on the Tema case, we can say it is a targeted, sort of a targeted attack. But then let's broaden the discussion to the spate of armed robbery and how these robbers get their arms in general. We know that in the last few months, especially between January and March, we recorded less activities of robbery attacks, but it seemed to have peaked in the last month or two. What do you think is accounting for this?
Well, to begin with, if you look at the psychology of a criminal, the criminal is always 2 or 3 steps ahead of our security agencies. And before any armed robbery attack will happen, there's always an insider. And there's that information flow, because why I say it's targeted is that you realize that more often than not, when they they go on their expedition, their targets always hold huge sums of money or the other way around. But I think that there is lack of political will to tackle the proliferation of arms in the country, because we have institutions mandated to tackle these things and they are not empowered to do it. So what can they do? And let me just use this opportunity to bring this to the fore of Ghanaians. When was our police service given vehicles? About 7-8 years ago. And these vehicles run 24/7. I just did some survey last week, went to some stations to talk to them, and it's so pathetic. Some of the district commanders don't even have money to run their vehicles. So they have to resort to other means. Okay, we're talking about the increase in armed robbery. What causes it? To be honest, it's one simple denominator: unemployment.
Really? Just that? Is it not greed? Could it not be?
Apart from greed, you see, our young men and women are looking at our leaders in position of trust that are amassing so much wealth, building houses upon houses. Yet, we are not kind of investigating them to see their source of money. So that's what gets them. Look, if I'm there, I cannot get the money. Someone is supposed to be in position of trust and create the avenue for me to get my daily livelihood, and it's not happening. I must get it by hook or crook, and this is what is happening. It will shock you that most of these armed robbers, some of them are even graduates. And to stand it, I want to use the opportunity to propose that the use of motorbikes in this country needs to be regulated. At least after 8 o'clock, there should be a complete ban on all manners of motorbikes. If you look at the armed robberies that are happening, they use motorbikes late in the night. And it is very difficult for our security agencies to be able to track them because our roads are very immotorable.
I think that's a call we would want to interrogate further. But you mentioned the issue of small arms and the fact that they seem to have increased in the hands of people, registered or not. There seem to have been an estimated 2.3 unregistered arms in circulation across the country, and that is an increase of about 850% from 2004. These illicit arms are the main weapons used by conflicts, used in conflict areas over chieftaincy issues and land rights, with new concerns about their use in the politically related vigilantism, which has also been recorded across the country. So let's watch the story, then we'll come and conclude the interview.
The proliferation of illicit arms and light weapons have become a global phenomenon. There are about 1 billion small arms in circulation around the world, with 8 million more produced annually. Here in Ghana, over 2 million arms are in circulation in the country, resulting in cases of violence, armed robbery, and various forms of attack. This is a phenomenon which leads to the loss of lives and property in the country. At a news conference in Accra to mark the Global Week of Action Against Gun Violence, Deputy Interior Minister Henry Korte emphasized the need to put appropriate legislation in place to deal with the menace. He also expressed government's commitment in dealing with issues of arms proliferation and violence.
Ghana is committed to the implementation of this Arms Trade Treaty and the Sustainable Development Goals in addition to other arms control instruments. Proliferation of small arms and the light weapons put all of us at risk, and the time to act is now.
The Small Arms Commission of Ghana, with support from the UN Development Programme, has been monitoring the proliferation of arms in the country, which has seen an 850% increment since 2004, representing 240,000 illicit arms in the country. Resident Coordinator of the United Nations, Christine Evans-Clark, has condemned the act, adding the phenomenon undermines the country's democracy.
And if Ghana wants to maintain its push towards creating a resilient and a robust economy to propel forward national development, then the country must deal with the menace of small arms and light weapons and their potential to fuel violent conflicts in Ghana's communities.
She noted activities resulting from the use of illicit arms pose serious threats on the country's development.
All right, so in concluding this interview about how we seem to have more arms in the system, 2 million small and light arms in Ghana, 2 million. Mr. Koting, are you surprised? I am. That we have these number of arms in Ghana.
I'm quite surprised looking at our population. It means that the number far outstrips our population. And I feel that it is heartwarming the government have realized that the time to act is now. I think we should reopen the channels of the amnesty that was done some few years ago and encourage those who have them to voluntarily return them without facing any prosecution. Another aspect government can also do is to deepen the level of relationship between institutions that are mandated and adequately resource them to carry out their mandate in this regard. And our police service equally needs to build that trust with the communities, because these illicit arms are manufactured in our communities.
But so some of them look sophisticated. Some of them, I mean, if a robber has an AK-47, we don't manufacture that in Ghana.
Yeah.
So those ones too, how
it also comes to our porous borders. Even at our ports here, people bring them in containers and hide them. And in connivance with some custom officers, they bring them in. I'm sad to say that the level of patriotism within some of our security personnel is not encouraging. And you may think that you are satisfying your own selfish interests. At the end of the day, this gun will end up killing a relation of yours or even your own self.
Right. Okay. We'll have to leave it here for now, but definitely the conversation continues about how we as a country can reduce the proliferation of small arms, where we are told that about 2 million of them are in circulation here in Ghana. Very disturbing. We've been speaking with Mr. Emmanuel Koting. He's a security analyst on the various issues relating to security and armed robbery. This is still Midday Live on TV3. Let's turn our attention to one other headline we brought to you, which has to do with one person we're told was injured and properties vandalized in Tamale in an attack by a vigilante group affiliated to the New Patriotic Party, that is the Kandahar Boys. They organized a news conference on Monday, and one other group organized a press conference, and the Kandahar Boys went there to prevent them. The press conference was being held to mobilize residents against one Dr. Daniel Akolbila, who allegedly stormed the Tamale Teaching Hospital to take over as the new chief executive officer. There is currently a standoff at the hospital after the CEO, Dr. Prosper Akangbong, refused to hand over the post, claiming that he hasn't received any letter from any higher authority to stand down from his post. Dr. Akangbong refused to hand over because, according to him, a letter from the health ministry did not indicate that he was no more the chief executive of the facility. The demonstration by the group known as Coalition of Youth Groups in Tamale was to appeal to government to revoke the appointment of the new CEO and appoint a Dagomba kinsman to head the hospital. Dr. Akangbong refused to hand over because, according to him, a letter from the health ministry did not indicate he was no more the CEO of the facility. And I would want to get some update on this development to see where we are heading to as a nation with regard to how vigilante groups decide who becomes CEO or otherwise. We'll speak to our correspondent shortly when we do get her on the line. But now, though, we have Robert Kujo. He's a public relations officer for the Ministry of Health. He's joined us via phone. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, my brother. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
We'd want to find out what is the latest with regard to the chief executive position of the Tamale Teaching Hospital.
Yeah, thank you very much. A letter indicating a new appointment in the person of Dr. David Akobila Zaumia as the new CEO of Tamale Teaching Hospital. He's taken over from Dr. Prosper Akambo, who's been there for some time now. What we were told yesterday was that Dr. David Akobila, the new CEO, was there to present his letter and then also to get the handing over done. But there was a hit somewhere coming from Dr. Prosper Akabon, and what he said was that he had not received any letter from the presidency through the Minister of Health regarding his being replaced.
But as a ministry, have you given him...
because of that hitch.
But have you given him any such letter?
We have not. In fact, that is a mistake on our part. The mistake came purposely for the fact that we wrote this letter. The idea was to give him first his letter indicating that he's been relieved of his post and that a new CEO is coming in. Unfortunately, we thought that letter had gone a long time, not knowing the letter had not been delivered, and we don't know why that letter was not delivered.
Okay, so as it stands,
the incoming, it was like I've not sent a letter from the the ministry, so I wouldn't go.
Okay, Mr. Kujo,
the difficulty has come because of our own mishap.
Mr. Kujo, if you would allow me, so as it stands, Dr. Kambong is right to still be at post, right?
It can be, but he's going to get his letter as soon as possible. I mean, by the close of this week, he should get his letter. In fact, his letter should have gone first, but the miscommunication that occurred. That is why he's not got any letter, because he doesn't know where he's going. So at least he has every reason to.
Do you know
such a statement? But
and finally, is it affecting the day-to-day operations of the hospital? These administrative confusion, is it affecting the operations of the hospital?
No, it shouldn't, and it is not. It wouldn't affect the day-to-day operation of the hospital.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's an issue that will be resolved as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking with us, Robert Kujo, Public Relations Officer for the Ministry of Health, on the issues regarding the confusion at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. We'll get to our reporter shortly and find out what's happening there currently. This is still Midday Live on TV3. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
For the ones who dare, for the ones who challenge the status quo, for those whom we think are different, yet they are brave souls, for the ones who do the undoable and think the unthinkable, for those who are relentless in their pursuit for glory, nothing will get in the way. Ambition, drive, and courage are their watchwords. They will create a legacy and others will follow. Their efforts are our ambition. Their achievements are our dreams. The world belongs to those who dare. Alliance.
There are lots of amazing stories out there. What we do on News 360 is to bring to you the most compelling news by teasing out the right pieces that bring the stories to life. My job is to present to you the news in the most gripping manner and asking the critical questions that bring out the needed detail out of the stories. My name is Alfredo Kanse. Join me on News 360, Monday through to Friday, 7 p.m. on air and online only on TV3.
When the news breaks, reporters and anchors broadcast it. analyst will talk about the impact of this on society. But current affairs will set the agenda for policymakers to implement it. This is what we do on Agenda. It's sharp, authentic, and hard-hitting. My name is Deborah Kwabla. Join us as we set the agenda.
Agenda now shows on Sundays at 3 p.m. only on TV3 and is supported by 3FM 92.7 Accra.
Thank you very much for staying with TV3. This is still Midday Live, and we go straight to the story that has to do with some two persons who have, petitioned the National Media Commission over a number of TV stations that are showing what they term as pornography. We just want to bring to your understanding the number of TV stations we have in the country as it stands. For what we know, 21 stations are still analog terrestrial TVs, that is the ATT free-to-air, and then 29 satellite TVs are currently also on the free-to-air direct home single channel, 7 satellite television broadcasting, which is the pay TV services, and then 6 satellite televisions broadcasting direct-to-home services. Also, 5 digital terrestrial pay TV services are ongoing, or we have that in the system, and then 5 digital terrestrial free-to-air channels, then 1 digital terrestrial pay TV. So what it all means is that we have a lot more television stations in the system. If you now have the digital television or the TV that has a inbuilt decoder, you can easily scan and get a lot more free-to-air channels. But does that then allow people to air whatever they want? We've been joined in studio by a representative from the National Media Commission who actually is in the position of the Executive Secretary, George Sapon. Mr. Sapon, good afternoon and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, my brother.
This concern actually started on social media, where people were saying that they've started seeing pornographic content on some digital channels. How early or how late have you known this, and what is the immediate action you're going to be taking?
I think we need to backtrack a bit. If you would recall, just recently, NMC passed a legislative instrument, LI 222 form. It was in direct anticipation of these issues. We work in the industry, we know how the industry grows, we knew what was going to happen. So when we were telling the people of Ghana that as regulators, we needed to put ourselves in readiness towards all the interests on diversity and pluralism that you have just beautifully explained. This was the point. Unfortunately, I think that we're a very concrete society, and so the society needed to wait till the problem happened in order to see what we were talking about. So this is the matter that we have been talking about almost 10 years now. The law that you just passed, that had all the, started long before now. We spent 8 years consulting our colleagues, discussing and explaining to everybody. We needed to put ourselves in readiness towards the explosion.
So at least the NMC anticipated such a problem?
In all honesty, and worked towards it in order to prevent it.
And what happened?
Well, unfortunately, the GIBA disagreed with us. We had held long discussions with them. They disagreed with us. They went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court looked at the law and said, the standards are good, but you can't enforce them because the law is in 2 parts. The standards that everybody should abide by and the enforcement mechanism. And the court said the enforcement mechanism we can't apply. So you have the standards, but you can't enforce them. Now this is the complication. Our colleagues who presented their complaint quotes a particular section of our guideline.
I think we are having a slight challenge with the sound. We'll fix it and then come back shortly. So viewers, we apologize for the break in sound, but we'll be back shortly. Thank you very much for staying with us. We go back to that story that has to do with pornographic content emerging on some TV stations, and the National Media Commission has commented on it. We actually have in studio Mr. George Sapong. He's the Executive Secretary for the NMC, and we were in the middle of the conversation, and you were telling us about the laws and the guidelines.
Yes.
What are the laws? What are the guidelines? Are they?
So in terms of content, they are the same. The difference is that the guidelines are non-enforceable. It's voluntary. People would obey it if they want to. And this is how the LI 2224 emerged. In 2008, you'd recall 2 radio stations that put everybody on edge during the elections. So international observers who observed the elections, particularly the media experts who came, said, listen, why don't you do what everybody does around the world? Convert these standards into law and make them legally enforceable. So we consulted the industry. Everybody's got the point. Then we did. And it was principally also in anticipation of digital migration. Just quickly, today, NCA's involvement in broadcasting is because they manage the frequency on which transmission is done. So if you really are running a service that doesn't need a frequency, you may not need anything from NCA. And that is why newspapers, magazines don't obtain any kind of authorization from NCA. So if you're on a digital platform where you are not using frequency, then we are in doubt as to what you must obtain in terms of authorization. That is why our law required content, had a requirement for authorization for programming or program distributors, because essentially in migration, what we know today as television stations essentially become content producers. So we split transmission from content production, and transmission is handled by the transmission companies. We tend to call them the multiplex platforms. So this is where we are. We are going to see much more complications in the industry.
It actually sounds a bit complicated, but with the concern in question, which has to do with the suspicious content we are seeing on our TV, on some channels, what is the NMC doing about it? Are there sanctions for media houses that put out such content?
As of now, not within the regulatory framework that we have. That would have happened under LI 2224. But for now, there's very little that one can do in terms of sanctions. It does not mean that we can't talk to people. We intend to have a conversation with them. But sincerely, I don't think that anybody can expect anything beyond speaking to the conscience of the people. If indications we are getting are right, we know that it's going to be a big challenge. But I still don't want to lose faith in the process. I want to wait. First of all, I need to be very careful because this is a complaint. Even though everybody is saying a petition, it's a complaint, which means that we need to take it through the processes as laid down by the complaint settlement law. We need to give them a hearing. Exactly. And so I need to be very careful what I say in order not to prejudge the outcome of that process.
Mr. George Sapong is Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission. Certainly this is a conversation that would go on for the next few days. We'll see how we can settle this. Can they go on? Do they have the right to push any content out? We are unsure of that. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we'll definitely follow on you again in coming days. This is still Midday Live. Time now for business, and we've been joined by Parkwesi Asari. Hello, Parkwesi.
Hi, Martin. Good to see you.
Yes.
Well, it's time now for business, and we'll be back shortly with very latest updates in the world of business.
The business segment is brought to you by
Thanks very much for the very latest in the world of business. My name is Parkwesi Asari. Now, a loss of the Ghana Grid Company tie in with power generational plants caused the electricity cuts to some customers of ECG across 6 regions in the country yesterday evening. Confirming the situation to TV3 News, a manager in charge of public relations at ECG, Dan Ejelabi, says power has been restored to all affected areas.
Some customers of ECG last night were plunged into darkness, but for a short while, we understand that the ECG has currently sorted out the issues and have restored power. But I would want to understand from ECG what caused the power cuts. We are now joined by Dan Ajay-Labi, who is a manager in charge of public relations, to throw some more light on the issues. Thank you very much for joining us on Midday Live. What caused the power cuts yesterday?
Thank you, and my pleasure for having me. Yesterday around 7 p.m., the information given to us by GRICO indicated that they lost generation and resulted in our customers also going off.
Could you tell us the number of customers who were affected?
I cannot give you numbers, but I can say that parts of Accra went, Tema region, parts went off. I think Volta region, part also went, Ashanti region, Eastern region, and then Western region.
And how long did the power cuts last?
By 11 p.m., all customers had been picked as at last night.
Are we seeing any form of deterioration with regards to our power supply situation? Because some few months ago, we saw something similar, and this time around, we are seeing this power cuts. Some are worried.
I wouldn't say so. But as I've said, you can never do away with faults. Even we human beings, once in a while, we fall sick. The most important thing is to do preventive things that will minimize the incidence of such occurrences. But there's nothing you can do about it. But the most important thing is when it happens, you are able to handle the situation so that it doesn't cause much problems.
Dan Ajay-Labi is the manager in charge of public relations at the Electricity Company of Ghana, throwing some more light and giving some clarification as to what really caused the power cuts that affected some parts of the Greater Accra. He mentioned Volta, he mentioned Eastern region, and some other regions yesterday. Rabiu Al-Hassan reporting from the Tema Regional Office of the Electricity Company of Ghana.
In some other stories, more farms in the Ashanti region continue to suffer army worm invasion despite efforts to fight the insects. About 63,000 hectares of maize farms have so far been infested by the dreaded fall army worm in all the 30 districts of the Ashanti region. A report by Ibrahim Abubakar.
Livelihoods of over 37,000 farmers in the Ashanti region are under threat. Records from the Regional Directorate of the Plant Protection Regulatory Service Division of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture indicate out of the 63,000 hectares of maize farms invaded by the hungry pests in the region, 36,000 hectares have been destroyed. This means only 27,000 hectares of maize farms have been recovered. Farmers are losing millions of cedis. Government has set aside 16 million Ghana cedis to fight the pest. But some farmers say they are yet to benefit. An affected farmer, Kwame Nsia, personally applied some chemicals on his farm to control the spread of the pest, but has not seen any positive result. A distraught 63-year-old farmer, Michael Osei, is tired of applying different types of insecticides. He has benefited from government's free mass spraying exercise, but says his farm has not seen any improvement. A 4-member team from the National Army Worm Task Force visited some of the affected farms for 2 days. But inadequate chemicals seem to be derailing efforts to fight the worms. Leader of the team, Paul Siame, observed some farmers have abandoned their fields because they have lost hope in fighting the pest.
We've encouraged them that the situation is not all that lost, and then the next consignment of chemicals that will come, they should avail themselves and then pick some quantity. We have noticed that gangs are gradually being formed in the various districts where we are now, as well as Adansi South. They already have a gang.
He commended Cocoa Board for assisting some of the districts with knapsack sprayers. The invasion of the fall army worm on farms puts its 560 million Ghana cedis planting for food and jobs program at risk. Hence, the need for government to put up its effort to control the pests.
That's all for the business news on Midday Live. There's more news on News 360. My name is Pakwiti Asare. We'll go for a short break, but we've got the very latest in sports with Afre also coming up shortly.
Good afternoon. Time to bring you the latest sports update here. New man in charge, new players to rely on. That seems to be Kwesi Appiah's mantra after his first game in charge of the Black Stars. He unleashed 4 names who could go on to become significant members of the side. Raphael Dwamena, Ebenezer Ofori, Thomas Ejapon and Lumo Agbenonu all started for Ghana against Ethiopia at the expense of more established names. But is this a 9-day wonder, or this provides a clue for what is to come? Yafo Sulabi has more.
Avram Grant called up Raphael Dwamena and Ebenezer Ofori for the Africa Cup of Nations in Gabon at the start of the year. And that seems to have provided Appiah with clues about 2 players who could go on to become central to Ghana's future. The pair were 2 of a few names in the new-look Ghana side. There was also a new name at left back in Lumo Agbenonu from 1860 Munich, and also Thomas Ejapon on the left wing. They were terrific. Dwamena scored twice on his full debut. Ejapon set up 2. Lumo looks like he will give Babaraman some badly needed competition at left back, and Ofori of Stuttgart looks like he will sit deep in that midfield and spray passes for some time to come. In starting the 4 players, Appiah was backing his promise to provide a new backbone for the team.
I'm here to start to build a team. My intention is how can we have a team that can be sustainable for the next 10 years. That is my ambition. It's a building process. Many players will be coming in and some will be going out. But saying that, it depends on your performance.
Many of those new players, including Raphael Dwamena, are delighted with the opportunity, and they say it is one they intend to take.
We've seen some before. Some people come and then they go. This is life. My ways are in the hands of the Lord. I just pray that He will just direct my paths very straightly. The way He wants, not the way I want. So Ghanaians should not expect any big thing from Raphael. But because my aim is to please the Lord, my aim is to focus on what the Lord has. What I have to focus more is, if I'm being given a chance, I have to help my nation win. That's the most important thing, and the rest will come later.
The emergence of these new players means a lot more competition for the Black Stars, which could mean an even better team. And that should be good news.
Meanwhile, Ghana captain Asamoah Gyan insists he has no issues with Andre Ayew, as his decision to wear a customized armband threatens to derail the Black Stars. Gyan went off with the band, forcing the day to pick one from the bench. The action has triggered a new round of conversation about tensions between the pair, but Gyan insists there is nothing like that.
Sometimes people see us and then they guess. But we in the camp know what is going on, so I don't think there is any issue between me and Andre. I was in the national team before he came. I've been his idol since day one. His father likes me so much, and I don't think, but human being, you don't know what people think. Sometimes you might be here, you don't like me. It's a normal thing. We are talking about reality, but for what I've seen, we don't have any problem. Like, everything is okay. So that is what we just looking at. We want to win games for the country. We want to win the cup for the country. It's been a while we won a cup. That is all we want to do for the country.
A memorial service will be held at Chinese Club Beijing Enterprises later today for former Newcastle United player Chuk Tiote. Tiote, who was 30 years old when he collapsed and died during training in China. A statement said Tiote's family will be there with his teammates past and present. On Wednesday, Chuk Tiote will be flown back home to the Ivory Coast. In his 7 years at Newcastle United, the Ivory Coast midfielder played over 150 games, including 3 last season. It is understood that Tiote's Ivory Coast teammates Papi Cisse and Gervinho, both of whom are currently at the club at clubs in China, will attend the service. Updates from the transfer world up next.
Arsenal forward Alexis Sanchez, 28, Arsenal forward Alexis Sanchez, 28, fears the Gunners will block him moving to Manchester City, leaving Bayern Munich as the Chile international's only option. Championship side Aston Villa are keen to sign former Chelsea and England captain John Terry, 36. Atletico Madrid and France striker Antoine Griezmann, 26, has extended his contract with the Spanish side until 2022. Former Manchester United striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic, 35, has started talks over a move to LA Galaxy. Liverpool's Brazil forward Felipe Coutinho, 25, has described speculations linking him with a move to Spanish giants Barcelona as complicated. Chelsea and Spain striker Diego Costa, 28, is prepared to go on loan for the first half of next season in order to secure a transfer to Atletico Madrid. Manchester City are set to begin talks with Tottenham over the potential signing of 27-year-old England fullback Kyle Walker. Alvaro Morata has edged closer to joining Manchester United after the 24-year-old Real Madrid striker's agent ruled out a move to Italian side AC Milan. And United have now made their first bid for Spain international Morata. Juventus are interested in signing Leicester's Algeria winger Riyad Mahrez, 26, while Tottenham are keen on the Foxes' 20-year-old England under-21 forward Demarai Gray. Everton are eyeing a move for Saint-Etienne's Guinea defender Florentin Pogba, 26, the elder brother of Manchester United midfielder Paul Pogba.
All the sports news here on Midday Live. My name is Anako Jaffer. There's more when Thierry Nyan comes your way on News 360. That's all the sports. Back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Anako Jaffer. And we shift our attention now to entertainment news. Well, let me just let you know what's happening in the entertainment world, because the Wopedodo hit maker Yao Siki, now known as Brother Yao, said goodbye to doing secular music after surviving a near-fatal accident in 2013. Owusu takes a look at how the former rapper is surviving after 4 years of cutting himself off from the corridors of fame, money, and worldly goodies.
In the morning, she one time in the evening. They use me as in toothbrush, always brushing for a reason.
Yao Siki's mega hit Wopedodo, released in 2011, catapulted him to fame. He swiftly followed that up with other hits, cementing his place in the showbiz scenes as a promising talent.
The songs, I wish they wouldn't play them anymore, because I feel that the message does not edify people, meaning that it does not build up people in the Lord.
The rapper became born again after he almost lost his life in a motor accident in April 2013.
When I was doing the worldly music, I had gotten to a point whereby I was receiving money from performing the song, and I knew it was going to get bigger until the Lord, Juma, they said, no, you are preaching evil. That's not why I brought you here at the first place.
Real name Asiedu Dartey, the former rapper now survives on preaching the gospel.
I'm into full-time ministry, and the Lord, he takes care of me. He pays me. When I preach, I do not ask. I cannot ask. It's not for money. No, the Lord says I should just trust him.
On daily basis, Yao embarks on evangelism, a task he combines with his music ministry. The preacher man has so far released 3 gospel singles, which include Thank You and Ohene. Sadly, patronage has been low.
Anyone who is following Jesus Christ truthfully will not have the world following him. The fan base that I had on Twitter, I put messages online for them, for the same fans, and I know some stopped following me, and I saw it, because when they unfollow, I see it.
Quoting scriptures, Brother Yao urged secular musicians to use their talents to win souls for Christ and not lead their fans astray.
The love of the world has filled up the hip life industry, and so it is leading people for their heart and love to be away from God. If your giftings that God has given you is not doing his will, then it is not glorifying him. And do you know what Jesus says in Luke chapter 12 verse 47? He says that anyone who knew the master's will and did not do according to his will receive many beatings. Seek to know the reason why the Father allowed you to have that potential and skill and use it for that purpose.
Talking about secular musicians becoming born again, Oforian Ponsa made that switch but has gone back to his old ways.
As human as I am, I get tempted. And sometimes you get to a point whereby, I'm pressured in the flesh, say, the temptation come. But you see, the grace of God keeps me going. Oh yeah,
His latest song, Midday, which translates to I Will Follow You, confirms his resolve to forever be for Christ.
I'm believing that the power of God in the Holy Spirit will be behind this song to inspire young ones like myself to also follow Jesus.
He's the way, and forever I will follow.
Yeah, I was seeking. All right, so that'll be it for the bulletin. It came your way from our studio here at Adisanwe. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Thank you very much for watching. There is more news on our website, 3news.com. You have a good afternoon, and as always, stay positive.